Hi, it's Joe here, gut specialist dietitian. This video is a recording from our exclusive Inner Circle group where we're talking about the gut-brain-bladder axis and how that influences pelvic floor health. Now, this was a fun training where I collaborated with our lead mindset coach who specializes in vagus nerve sensitivity and gut-directed therapy. So we explored why conditions like IBS go hand in hand with pelvic floor dysfunction and what you can do to treat it. So let's transition over to that call recording with myself and Jay.
So yeah, I'm gonna talk to a little bit about why I suggested this topic to talk around some of the science between how it links in with the gut-brain axis, and then obviously just depending on what questions, there's certain things that I can talk to around. What is pelvic floor dysfunction? What are some ways that you can support your pelvic floor when you have IBS? And then how to recognize the pain difference as well between IBS pain and bladder pain. So there's certain things that we can talk to, which is just coming up with what I've seen with clients. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to jump on and do this. And as always, you guys are the experts in yourselves. So I'm guessing that you've come here because you relate to that title, right? And so I'm also really curious around your feedback in comments of perhaps how you recognize, that was an issue. So yeah, feel free to chat away as well, if you want to along the way.
Jay, can I ask you quickly too? There's quite a few newbies here. Lindsay,
Yeah.
Lavina, Karen, Bronwyn, welcome. Karen, Forkhead. So perhaps just quickly say
Yeah.
where
Intro.
you are based and maybe an intro about what are your qualifications or experience?
Of course. So, my name's Jay, and I've been with Diet vs. Disease here for 4.5 years. Depending on, in Australia, I'm a gut-directed therapist. In the US, it's more termed a mindset coach. So I specialize in the therapy side of gut-brain disorders. My background is I have a degree in psychology, social work, and a diploma of clinical hypnotherapy. I've worked in clinical mental health in Australia for over 10 years, and then I reskilled. I actually went through a burnout in COVID and reskilled in this area and have just really become quite obsessed with it. There's always emerging science and evidence, and I absolutely love working with this cohort. So in Joe's team, I am there to provide that holistic support. The one thing that Joe got really early, which is an absolute credit to him, is recognizing that we are dealing with a gut-brain disorder. And so you can't really tackle it with just one way, okay? So you've got in the program the most phenomenal dietitians, honestly, the brains on them, and they're dealing with all microbiome. They have very diverse experience in what they do, but then Joe's brought on us mindset coaches to deal with the other end of that spectrum, that brain part. Anything that is affecting the brain is affecting the gut and vice versa. And I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were one of the first people that sort of put this in place, this holistic sort of style of therapy, and it's worked so well, and that's why I'll continue working in this area, because it gets really phenomenal results. So that's a little bit about me. I have mixed modalities that I bring. So I do talk therapy, I do nervous system support work with clients, and then I also do hypnotherapy and clinical hypnotherapy and meditations. So if you do come into the program, you do have access to my whole library as well. And if you don't like mine, I don't have an ego, you can also try Nova, and I'll give you other free ones as well to try. But that's sort of what I bring into the program, and my role with Joe.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I think not that we're so smart to have all of these different modalities in one place, but rather we were sort of just first, I think,
Yeah.
because I started it in end of 2018, start of 2019, and then COVID came along and everyone all of a sudden became very savvy on Zoom and telehealth almost. And we just had a head start. And I think we've got some of the best people, and Jay absolutely is one of those. So yeah, super excited to start. Maybe I just read in the chat, by the way, everyone. If you've got questions as they come up, you could type them in the chat, and if there's time, we'll do our best to get to those live on this call. Otherwise, afterwards we can put them in the group. So yeah, how should we start? Maybe like, what is who's this for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna tell you what sort of highlighted this issue, because it was a client that brought it up when we had been doing nervous system support work together. So they were getting in tune with their body and what they were noticing. And she had a really great observation, which she was going through this period of anxiety. And yes, she noticed the flare up with the gut, but she also noticed in that period that she was having to urinate a lot. Okay. And she noticed that the bladder would get full, it would aggravate the gut, and it would feel like cramps. And then when she was done, it would be better again. And so she was like, she's like, is this normal? I'm imagining it was a combination of anxiety, brain gut connection, and a tight pelvic floor. And sorry, I'll just mute this one. So I'm just going to go through and mute a few things here. And so with that observation, it was great because I was able to lean into it more. Obviously, our dietitians have actually along the way encouraged multiple people to go for pelvic floor examinations, and they've had pelvic floor dysfunction. So from their perspective, they've been able to pick it up. But I'm wanting to talk more around the mindset and why it happens. So it was a really great observation, because it highlights that intricate connection between the gut, the bladder, pelvic floor, and our nervous system, okay? And that can be referred to as the gut-brain-bladder axis. And it's not uncommon with clients that have disorders of the gut brain, especially during times of heightened anxiety. And as we know, that anxiety can come on out of anywhere when we're dealing with gut issues, because we're more hypervigilant around food when we go out, things like that. So anxiety is generally higher in this cohort. So I just want to talk to what was happening there for that client. So if we're anxious, you can change that to stress, worry, whatever resonates with you. The body can enter that fight or flight mode. That activates our sympathetic nervous system, and that can tighten our muscles, including those in the pelvic floor. And then that increases sensitivity in both the gut and the bladder. So if you've got a full bladder, that can add pressure to an already sensitive pelvic area, and that can trigger cramp-like sensations in the gut. And then once you empty the bladder, that pressure or the discomfort can ease. Anxiety obviously increases our overall vigilance to our bodily sensations, making the symptoms like urgency, bloating, cramping feel even more intense. So when the anxiety subsided for this client, the nervous system went back to rest and digest, and that explains why the symptoms improved or reset. So I can talk to a little bit more around how it's all connected. I just want to make sure that is resonating with people. I'm not going too far into it, Joe. Is that sounding okay so far?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just if anyone has questions as they come up, just
absolutely.
Put it there if we're going too fast or we're skipping over something.
Lynn's making sense. Good. Lindsay, you talked to constipation. I can talk to that more. Absolutely. Clients that struggle more with constipation can be more prone to pelvic floor issues. So Paula's saying she gets all those symptoms when illness or even a cold. Even if you can imagine, you know the term, I'm going for a nervous wee. That is what we're talking about here, okay? So let's talk around why they're all connected. So what we've got here is pelvic floor tension. So anxiety can lead to that involuntary tightening of the pelvic floor muscles, which affects both the bladder and the gut. That can mimic gut cramps or increase sensations of fullness or discomfort. Then we've got that nervous system overlap, okay? The vagus nerve. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm a big nerd for the vagus nerve. This is the longest of 12 cranial nerves in our body. And when we're talking about the gut-brain connection, the vagus nerve is key to this, okay? It connects that back of the brainstem goes into all of those internal organs. Okay, so just for anyone that doesn't know that, that's the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve and pelvic nerves regulate both the gut and the bladder. So if you've got heightened anxiety, it can increase sensations from both of the organs. That gut bladder pressure that some people are experiencing, anatomically, the bladder and the lower intestine are really close together. So the pressure from one, like a full bladder, can aggravate the other one. Okay. So this is sort of what we're talking about here. There's things obviously that we can help, like diaphragmatic breathing, pelvic floor exercises. We're really wanting to focus on that letting go instead of clenching up, and the mindfulness of that anxiety cycle. I'm going to pause here and just see, because there's other things that I can go into, and saying it's good to hear this. She's recognized it in herself. That's great. I'm curious if people that have done the program did you recognize that you had pelvic floor dysfunction before you came into the program? Have you recognized this link, or is this entirely a new concept for you? And for anyone that doesn't know, while people are answering that, what pelvic floor dysfunction is, you see a pelvic floor therapist. Perfect. That's great. So a pelvic floor dysfunction is a condition where the muscles of the pelvic floor, which support the bladder, the bowel, uterus in women, prostate in men, where it's not functioning optimally. So it can mean that you have overactive muscles where they're too tight, they cause pain, urinary urgency, constipation. For some people that struggle more with constipated dominant IBS, can have this overlap. Or painful intercourse. It's another thing that I see a lot in clients. It's something that I ask around, sexual health, and it's something that some clients have had to completely let go of because of this. Or you might have underactive muscles, they're too weak or uncoordinated, and that can lead to incontinence, prolapse, which someone's just mentioned here, or difficulty with bowel or bladder emptying. And then we have dyssynergia, which is where the muscles contract when they should relax, and that's more common in constipation and IBS-C. So that's sort of what pelvic floor dysfunction is, and the common signs of that can be trouble starting or completing a bowel movement, frequent urination, or feeling like you can't really empty the bladder, pelvic or tailbone pain, pain during or after sex, a feeling of heaviness or pressure in the pelvis, unexplained bloating or a trap sensation, an IBS that doesn't fully resolve with diet changes. So this is why sometimes there's that overlap where dietitians are working with clients and they've gone through a few things, and then they're like, I really think you need to go and get a pelvic floor assessment. And there's a lot of clients that come back and realize that that has been a part of the issue for them. Which came first, pelvic floor dysfunction or gut problems? Lindsay said, just curious. I have prolapse since having my daughter and saw a pelvic floor physical therapist in the past. I think that question could be a little bit like that egg and chicken one, the same with IBS. What caused it? Was it a microbiome issue, or was it dysregulation in the brain? I think sometimes we do get fixated on what caused it, and I see that with a lot of presentations. And sometimes I'm like, it's just try not to go into that initial, what can you do now to tend to yourself? How can you nurture yourself? What is it that you're needing to lean into now to feel better in that pelvic area? And you're already doing really great. You're doing the pelvic floor physical therapy in the past. I was talking to a client the other day that says they do a lot of kegels. So what are people doing? What has helped with your pelvic floor dysfunction, if that's something that you've noticed? As I said, you're the experts in yourself. So it's really great when you can share this knowledge with each other. Let me know if I'm talking too much, because there's certain things that I can talk to here, but I do want to make room for if there is clients. There's certain things that we can do. I want to talk to with clients that do have IBS. Just some tips that you can do to support your pelvic floor. Just checking in on how people are feeling with this so far. I'm just going to keep talking then, if that's okay. So well, let me talk here. There's a few areas here. Basically, I suppose I'll talk to the evidence first around what's happening here. When we've got the brain, gut, bladder, they're in constant communication with those nerves, like I just described, and the chemical messengers. So what's happening here is called visceral convergence, okay? And that explains why dysfunction or pain in one organ can affect others via that shared spinal pathway of nerves. So you can't fully treat one part of that axis without considering the others as well. Core strength is useful, absolutely. Yeah. And so let's have a look here. When we also talk around, obviously, with the work I do, stress, trauma, anxiety, generally will have an impact on what my clients are experiencing. So chronic stress and trauma can lead to protective pelvic floor tension. So there's altered vagal tone and HPA axis dysregulation seen in people with trauma histories, and pelvic bracing or any bracing of the body can be a common response to that. Okay. I love what Joe's just said here, talking to little t and big T trauma. A lot of people will think when I'm mentioning trauma here that it needs to be what would typically be seen as trauma, going to war, a big crash, things like that. What the evidence is showing is that if you've gone through a period of little t traumas, these are things that can be happening day to day that can sometimes have more of an impact than a big one with that would lead to PTSD. Okay. What we're talking about when I talk about trauma, big T, little t, I'm talking about anything that you went through where you did not feel you had the capacity to deal with it at the time. Okay. Nobody can define trauma for you. It is subjective. Okay. So if you found something traumatic, if you went through something where you didn't feel like you had the skill set to handle it at the time or the tools to handle it, that is trauma. Okay. And so when we have gone through periods of this over long periods of time, it could be bullying at school, it could be if we went through childhood trauma, if we've then gone through workplace stress, relationship difficulties, anything, okay? Anything that you went through that you feel like you didn't have the skill set to it, that is causing dysregulation in your body, okay? And that bracing of the body can be a response to that. And that is why I talk to a lot of people that are in a state of hyperarousal a lot, that sympathetic activation. So when the nervous system perceives threat, the body, especially the gut and the pelvic floor, tighten to protect it. Okay, so we can start to understand the science behind what's happening there. Then how that interacts, obviously, with everything. The gut microbiome is going to be affected. If you're dysregulated, your immune system is going to be affected. If you're dysregulated, that can lead to inflammation in the bladder, in the pelvic nerves when we're dysregulated. Okay. So when we are supporting our nervous system, when we're toning our vagus nerve, which is a big thing that I encourage clients to do and everyone in this program, what we're trying to do there is everything that stress and trauma causes in the body, we're trying to soften that. Okay. When we're bringing calmness back into our body, when we're regulating ourselves again, this is where we see changes in our immune system, in the inflammatory markers, in hormone function as well. Okay. So it's part and parcel with this area. We've got lots of things that people are doing. Jen does kegels, which help during the day, but not overnight when I'm very relaxed. How do you find a pelvic floor therapist? So it depends. I can answer that from an Australian perspective. You can get referred. A physiotherapist, just like a sports one, there's ones that specialize in pelvic floor. And I think that's been similar to my US clients as well. You can just get a refer. Don't know if you need a referral in America. I don't know, Joe. Do you know that at all? Or does any client had experience they needed a
Yeah,
referral?
I'm not actually sure. It'd be great if the US client who's on here can
Yeah.
share what process they went through.
I know in Australia, I think if you got a referral from a doctor, you'd be able to get a rebate through Medicare. You could probably just go see one anyway, but then you may not get a rebate. I think it's insurance based if you need a referral. Okay. Uh, and then we've got one here. Joan says, I've got weak rectal muscles after having surgery, prolapsed hemorrhoids. I've done physical therapy and continue with exercise. My IBSD has improved since I'm FODMAP, which has greatly improved my symptoms, but not totally eliminated it. Absolutely. But that's great, though, that it's improved the symptoms. And it sounds like you're really taking a holistic approach to that as well. You're working on the food, the microbiome, and then that nerve. Well, hopefully you're working on the nervous system. You said here that you were working with physiotherapy, which is great as well. If you haven't done anything on the nervous system, Joan, then I would suggest incorporating some meditation into a practice. Usually depends on insurance plan. Talk to your gynecologist. So there's some helpful things here as well. So we can either go to a question
Chris
here.
wants to
Yeah,
say
Chris,
something,
go for it. I'll see if I'll unmute you, Chris. Oh yeah, let me.
I had just started this program, and I was signed up to do a pelvic floor intensive in Sedona.
I remember this, yeah.
So they do myofascial release, and I'm a massage therapist, so I'm not in the United States. I'm not able to do pelvic floor. For the state of Wisconsin specifically, you have to be a PT and trained in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was struggling trying to find somebody local. There are a couple people like in the Milwaukee area for me, but that's still like a 3-hour drive. So it's not real well versed in this area that I can find. But man, it made a huge difference. I think every woman who has ever had a child should have pelvic floor work. It just was amazing, the difference.
Absolutely. I remember you saying that, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing, because it was also so pivotal, like at the time that you were doing that, right? And we were doing nervous system support work, and you were able to sort of make all the linkages because you had a massive sort of release from that, didn't you?
I did. So yes, and then talking with you and pulling pieces together, I had no idea how the gut and the pelvic floor and trauma, and man, it all connects. And like you said, everyone is going to be different. My trauma may have been a small trauma compared to somebody else, but for me it was, a big T.
Absolutely.
So that is very personalized.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing. And you've got Lindsay and Jerry here saying absolutely and yes in agreement with that. It's really, really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm wondering whether would it be useful if I go into what you can do to support your pelvic floor if you experience IBS? I'll go over a few things here. Yeah, okay. So again, if you can, work with a pelvic floor physiotherapist. And obviously, I know across the states, and from what Chris has just said, sometimes that's difficult to get in. And so, trying to do what you can around that, I suppose. Especially if you've got one trained in IBS-related pelvic dysfunction as well. They're going to assess for tightness, weakness, coordination issues. They'll teach you muscle awareness, relaxation, correct toileting posture, obviously, or you could go down a different route like Chris is describing, which is I'm going to mispronounce it, the myofascial release. I went to a myofascial massage therapist. That is a mouthful. That was incredible. So just like a physio that helps with shoulder pain, there is one that can help with your pelvic floor as well if you're in a part of America or Australia, and you can get that service. Other things that you can lean into is practicing gut-directed relaxation and hypnotherapy. Okay, I know this is a bit of like a buzzword. I've been doing this, as I said, for 4.5 years with Joe, and even though he's being very modest there around that, Joe has always followed the evidence and the research first, and that's why he's got the team that he has, because whenever there's evidence for something or research for something, then he implements it, okay? And so if you're working with someone like me, and it doesn't need to be me, obviously therapy can be so personalized, you might have rapport with someone already, but they might be, if they've got an awareness of the body, it is quite a niche area, but if they've got awareness around it, it can reduce that pelvic bracing and improve the gut bladder coordination. A big part of what I'm teaching you is to get in touch with your body. Okay. Many of us are disconnected from our body, and most of the time that stress response or anxiety response is starting in the body first, just because of the way that that vagus nerve signals. So a big part of my work with you is getting you to connect your brain and your body together again. Okay. That helps with nervous system downregulation, vagus nerve support. We're toning the vagus nerve. If your body feels safe, the pelvic floor won't need to guard as much. A big thing that I learned from dietitians is using a squatty potty or a footstool when you're on the toilet, okay? That elevates your knees above your hips to relax the muscles and allow for easier evacuation. I have become such a nerd now that I won't go even camping without that squatty potty. I've got a little fold-up one, okay? So it's like aligning the pipes in the body, so there's less strain and there's more flow. Breath work and diaphragmatic breathing can be something you engage in. It encourages full pelvic expansion and release on exhale. It's great for reducing subconscious clenching, which many of us are doing, okay? A lot of the way that we hold our body is habitual. We've just gotten used to holding it a certain way, and so we're sort of needing to unlearn that, okay? Think of your breath as a massage for the pelvic floor. I know that they encourage avoiding pushing or straining. Oh, sorry, go for it, Joe.
Oh yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, so I put my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, it's just that the squatty potty or raising your feet, because remember, like humans have been, I don't know, evolved or around tens of thousands of years, and toilets are sort of, you know, in the past. I'm not actually sure the history of the toilet, but I'm going to say 100 years or so. And so we're meant to have our knees raised much higher than we do when we're sitting on the toilet. And so that's just like a little thing that makes sense when you think, when you actually understand human anatomy. And so it is really important. And the other thing I wanted to mention was just that, you know, the vagus nerve is that highway that connects the brain and the gut and all these other organs and the muscles in the pelvis, and it goes both ways as well. So if we can actually focus on things that will help reduce the stress and how tense we are in the pelvis, it can help to relieve anxiety and stress if you experience that, or you consider yourself highly anxious sometimes. And obviously a lot of us are, when it comes to then IBS and things like that. And you can see this cycle, and it's just back and forth. And so we sort of want to address both areas at the same time, because they feed into each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Absolutely. And for some of us, we're unlearning things as well. We've gotten used to associating the toilet with stress. And so I also say, you know, as ridiculous as it is, I'm like, reclaim that space, okay? You know, bring music into the bathroom with you, have a pretty candle. If you're really struggling, I have an ice roller that I use to activate my vagus nerve on the neck. For some people that are experiencing urgency or constipation, I'm like, bring in that ice roller, just like relax, listen to some music, trying to take that pressure off, put the squatty potty there. We're trying to change that association, okay? And that's part of what working with me and the dietitians can help with, because we can come up with a lot of different ways, but we can personalize it for you with things that might work for you. So one of the other things is obviously avoiding pushing or straining. That's especially important if you're dealing with constipation, dominant IBS, or a mixed type. Someone's saying here they use Jan saying the squatty potty and tapping on the abdomen helps. Some people using the potty squatty and doing the I love you massage, okay? So they're really helping the sort of the digestion through hand massage can help as well. And then use relaxed abdominal pressure instead. So pushing can make tight muscles tighter. It's like yelling at a tense teammate. Okay, it's doing nothing to help. Okay, so there are some little tips there that I thought I would share with what you can do to support pelvic floor if you have IBS. Does anyone? What is an I love you massage? It is a way to massage your belly where you're basically saying I love you, and it supports the Joe, help me out here. It's basically helping the colon, isn't
So
it?
the large intestine,
Yeah.
the colon is your bowel or large intestine. Yeah. It's got many different, or gut as well, also refers to the large intestine. The small intestine is like, it's really long. It's like, I think it's at least 10 meters. And that's where it goes stomach, small intestine, all the micronutrients and things get absorbed into your bloodstream. So, all the vitamins and minerals you need, things like that. And then the large intestine is where the microbiome is, but that is where you can actually, it's quite short and it goes up and across and down, and then it goes colon, rectum, anus, and out. That's like physiologically how they label them. So the ILU massage is to sort of push things along that large intestine, the colon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can Google it too. If you just Google I love you massage, it'll come up. Another thing that can be really good is deep abdominal pressure. You can actually activate that vagus nerve through deep abdominal pressure, like laying on a towel or like a half deflated medicine ball or curaceous ball. And again, you can Google that to get an idea from pelvic floor physiotherapists of how to do that. And Christine here has gone and shown you what to do there. You're a team player, Christine. I love that. Anne says, what about Kegels?
What are Kegels?
Oh, what are Kegels? Kegels is strengthening the pelvic floor. So it's exercises that you can do. And again, the one thing I think I've learned from that is Kegels aren't going to be good for everyone. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you do have the over tightness. And so this is where I wouldn't want to say everyone going to Kegels, because you'd really need to have that assessment to work out what the issue is for you and if there's an issue there that needs strengthening.
Yeah, I would be careful with Kegels, but essentially to give you an idea of, if you think like you got a fright, or like I lost or left my phone behind, and you tense up now, it's like tense and clench. That's like tightening of the pelvic floor. And if it was like I'm trying to go to the toilet or urinate and you're pushing out, and that's a relaxing of the release of the pelvic floor. And typically we're all very good. We're overly strong at tensing up the pelvic floor muscle, and we don't relax it very easily. And that's the part that typically people are told to train. But again, that's quite specific. I don't think you should focus on that first. And that's also usually where the pelvic floor specialists would judge. Because, Tim, one of the senior dietitians, he's always been on my case about like, we need a, pelvic floor specialist on the team, because, we are trying to make sure that you've got access to all the bits that you need. But the limitation, one of the best things is we're online, so we can bring you this information when you're at home. You don't need to go anywhere. There's no like waiting rooms and things. And with nutrition and the work that you do, Jay, and the others on the mindset team, we can do it online typically. But when it comes to the pelvic floor specialist, that's when sometimes it is a bit more hands-on. They want to feel around the gut and things like that, and then it's obviously not something we can do online.
Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering whether it would be interesting for people to know the difference. Do people struggle that have this issue? Do you struggle to tell the difference between IBS pain versus bladder pain? Is that something you want me to talk to a little bit? Would that be interesting?
Yeah, or is it more like, okay, I just need to urinate all the time, and I don't want to have to go to the restroom all the time. and
Yeah.
what are things we can do there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's also that saying, if you've got to use it to lose it, because I know sometimes, particularly my mum, for instance, she has to go to the toilet everywhere for fear that there's not going to be a toilet, and it's definitely weakened, her ability to hold. Karen, I need to urinate often. Yeah. So let's also talk around that then as to when it's showing up, okay? Because it may not just be, it might just be it can be bladder pain that you're experiencing. It could be IBS pain. What we want to do is look at the location first. So trying to see in your body where it's showing up. So if it's the lower abdomen, sometimes around the belly button, that would indicate that it's more IBS pain, okay? If it's lower abdomen or pelvis and behind the pubic bone, that would probably be more likely to be bladder pain, okay? There can be different triggers. If we're talking about experiencing IBS discomfort, there can be food, stress, bowel movements that can be triggers for IBS. Absolutely. And then if we're talking about bladder pain, triggers for that can be if you've got a full bladder, and certain drinks can trigger it too, like alcohol and coffee as well, which I would say actually they can trigger IBS as well. So when we're talking about when you get relief, if you get relief after you pass stool or gas, that would be more likely to be IBS pain. If you get relief after urinating, it's more likely to be bladder pain. The timing of it, IBS pain is going to be often linked to your digestion, whereas bladder pain is often builds as the bladder starts to fill up, right? So that's sort of going to be more incremental over time. And other symptoms can be for IBS pain, bloating or change in stool, whereas for bladder pain, it can be frequent urination, burning, or a pressure feeling. So the IBS pain is usually revolved around eating and pooping, whereas if the pain builds with a full bladder or happens more with urination, it might be coming more from the bladder or the pelvic floor, is what I would say.
Let's talk about therapeutic approaches then, Jay. So we've talked about pelvic floor physiotherapy and if you can get access to that, that's more literal hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you normally do with the clients, Jay? Do we want to talk about what gut-directed therapy or nervous system regulation and breathwork stuff? Because it'd be great to sort of touch on what you would focus on with a client. And then if anyone is on that has had a good experience working with Jay or something that they learned off one of Jay's calls or one-to-one with her or someone else on the mindset team, what works for you? It'd be great to hear from you from you guys as well, to share your experience with others who might also be struggling with that. But yeah, Jay, maybe you want to touch on what you would typically start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm going to get a history of it as well. Your whole history first is what I get in my first session. Most of it, anyway. I have a very biopsychosocial approach. I'm very much a belief of what you're struggling with now. Your past informs that. And that's my job as your therapist, to be able to help you connect those things and put some puzzle pieces in place as we continue our journey together. It's not going to be doing anything different if you have bladder urgency and gut and bowel urgency. What we need to do is we need to calm that visceral hypersensitivity. We need to calm that nervous system down, because if we're calming the gut, we're going to be in turn calming the bladder. Okay. If there is dysfunction there, obviously I'm going to suggest, you might want to try a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Most of my clients that I work with are obviously in conjunction with a dietitian, and they're very good at picking up and suggesting when someone needs to go for that assessment. So normally that's even being done before we work together. And I'm working more on that anxiety around that. Okay. So we're going to be doing relaxation techniques, nervous system support techniques, and sometimes changing that association as well. I have a client recently where he'll struggle getting in the car and he has to keep getting out because he thinks he needs the toilet. And so his homework last weekend was, when he was at home on the weekend relaxing, he had to just go sit in the car for 5 minutes and read a book, 5 minutes and have a coffee. But we were really working on changing that association between the brain responding to, this is what happens when we get in the car, and changing it. And after that weekend of doing that, he was able to go to the shopping center without running back in and out of the toilet. And he went to the shopping center that whole time without going to the toilet. And he's like, he cannot remember the last time in years that he's done that. And so there can be work, but again, that was so personalized for him. So it can be that there's association things that we would work on, but predominantly, is there trauma that was attached to it? We could work on trauma that was attached to it. If it is in regards to a dysregulated nervous system, I'm going to be teaching you ways to regulate that nervous system and then challenge the thoughts that come with that. And it's so personal, you know, for some people, they're gonna go with catastrophizing, or they're going to be going with a fear response. The one thing I teach most clients, which I think is practical across the board, is remembering that the brain's job is to keep us safe, not happy. Okay. So when it is having a response like that, it is because it's had a bad experience. Okay. It's fearful of something. And I'm teaching you how to challenge that thinking and to start to try and rewire the brain so it knows that it doesn't need to be that hypervigilant anymore. Okay. And that's some of the work that we can do together. Does anyone have any questions from that, or any of my clients that are on here that want to talk to anything that they've learned, or even if they're not my clients, things that you've learned from other people that have helped, or from the mindset team more broadly? Yeah, go for it, Cindy. I can ask you to unmute there, just see if that works for you. Dana says this connecting so many dots for me. I'm so glad. Cindy, go for it.
Okay, I typed a note and then I found out how to raise my hand. There have been times when I think that I have a successful bowel movement complete. You know, I judge often how many pages of toilet paper I need, and I'll be going along, and then later I found out that I have had seepage that I didn't even know was occurring, and I don't know it until I can feel, you know, the acidic feel of stool, and I have a mess. I do go to a pelvic floor therapist, and we've been doing strengthening, but it doesn't seem like there's a feeling to be weak or let loose or anything. This accident just happens.
That's incredibly frustrating, isn't it?
Yes.
Has your physical therapist been able, are you working on strategies to be able to check in with the body around what's been happening there, Cindy? Have you spoken to them around what's happening?
It's, you know what, it's really hard to describe. Plus the fact you always have that embarrassment of, you know, talking about poop. But I have been doing strengthenings, and I'm wondering if that's not really where the problem is, but what do I know?
Yeah, I would definitely, in things like this, I really encourage you to be your biggest advocate. Please don't be embarrassed to talk to them about it. If you're already in that position where you're seeing a pelvic floor therapist, I promise you they haven't heard anything new. Okay, so feel free to tell them what is happening, because they may be it might direct them in a completely different way, Cindy. So please, let them know what's happening and see if they can direct you to something that might be more useful. And there's more people raising their hands as you've spoken. So I'm wondering whether this has happened to other people. Do you mind if I switch to see what Jan has to say here, Cindy?
No, please.
Perfect. Okay.
Please go ahead.
Of course.
Hey.
Hey, Jan.
Hi, Jay. I don't experience what was just shared, but I think I have access to pelvic floor therapy through my Kaiser plan that I haven't taken advantage of. So I'm going to look into that.
Good.
But yeah, my work with you and Nerva and Insight Timer has completely changed the calmness of my body. I had a trauma last year, and my IBSD came from the stress. I mean, really, 2024 was just a very stressful year. And it's just helped me so much working with you and, like I said, Nerva and Insight Timer.
Yeah.
Myself back where I can stay with, the resources that you sent me. The window of tolerance is the big one. And
Yeah,
if I get
absolutely.
out of that, I have tools to get back in. So I'm
Good.
so grateful.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Jen. You've actually been a great client that's sort of seen the whole three modalities, right? We've seen the nervous system support, we've done a little bit of talk therapy, and you've taken advantage of the hypnotherapy as well. So it's really great to see that you've sort of taken advantage of all of them, and you're doing so well, and implementing the in-between work. I think that's what I encourage clients to realize too. Sometimes the magic they think happens just in a session, but it's in the in-between work as well as implementing what we're doing.
This is a daily practice. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for sharing.
I want to thank Joe. I want to thank you, Joe, for having this available for us and for your now continuity programs, which I'll be going to in 5 more weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you for sharing, Jan. It's nice to see you and hear from you, and thanks for sharing your experience there.
And I just want to go back to Cindy there. The main thing I would encourage you to do, Cindy, is talk to the pelvic floor therapist about exactly what you're experiencing. If you can, keep a diary over the next week before you see them so that you can give them some data to look at. And then from my perspective, I would be trying to get in some calmness in the body, meditations, and then perhaps checking in with the body at different times around what you're noticing, seeing if you can pick up anything before it gets to that burning. But I think you're already in with the best person to give them that data and see what they have to say. And that was happening to somebody else here as well, to Joan. So see how you go with that, Cindy. But thank you so much for your vulnerability in sharing that as well. You're not alone. And, we don't want people to be embarrassed about talking about anything. This is a safe place here. And Garni says it's connecting dots, which is great. Internal pelvic floor treatments are very important with helping with incontinence. Absolutely. Well, I think we're sort of going to be in the area of wrapping up soon. So these are obviously little webinar things that we can do more often. Joe and I are excited. Our mindset team are excited to do more of these. So if anyone has, areas that they'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know. And we can talk to that as well from mindset perspective, from dietetic perspective. I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule to show up and hang out with Joe and I. I hope that you've gotten something out of it. And yeah, you're welcome.
Jay, can I ask, so the other team, let's quickly just mention like the other members on the mindset team and sort of what they sort of cover on their calls or their particular modalities, just so the clients are aware, because it's not just Jay.
No, yeah, I am. Everyone's loving it. It's getting great feedback here. This is great. So I am the team leader of our mindset team, which, Joe and I are so happy is expanding. So as Joe said, you don't just have access to me. We've got quite unique things that we bring in. Julie comes in with a wealth of knowledge in coaching. That's really her speciality. She is a practitioner in tapping, which is EFT tapping. You see people doing this. So she's really great in teaching tapping. She's also done nervous system regulation as well. So she's done the same nervous system support study as I have. She is a really great at pain, at self-compassion, fantastic clinician. Then we have Amy, who is actually one of the original ones. She helped me come on board, and she again specializes in mindfulness, in coaching. She has a really, both Julie and Amy have board certified in what they do. Amy also has an undergraduate in psychology, so she does bring in that psychosocial component as well. She's also trained in nervous system regulation and is just a beautiful human being. And then we have Rachel, who is our team member in Paris. She's also a board certified coach. She brings in a different sort of skill set as well. She's done a lot of business coaching. She's just doing our nervous system regulation now. And she's really great at sort of, getting you into goal-oriented things and helping you, get tasks done. She's a really, really lovely person as well. And then our newest team member, who we actually poached from our dietetic side, is Kirsten. And she's coming on and is, again, a health coach, and she also is a hypnotherapist as well. And so she is going to be able to offer clinical hypnotherapy to our clients as well. She's got a different style to me, which is great. We all have different styles because we recognize that it's not a one approach suits all. And we want you guys to be able to go to a mindset coach that you resonate with. And yeah, so we've got a bunch of different ones on the team for you to be able to choose, and they all bring something unique, and they're all brilliant at their work.
Thank you for sharing. Do you mind quickly just defining what hypnotherapy actually is, we're performing versus, I still think a lot of people think about stage hypnotherapy.
Yeah. So it's so different. So clinical hypnotherapy hypnotherapy is obviously a very deep form of relaxation, like meditation. You're not going to be able to do anything you don't want to do. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis, okay? So generally when I work with a client, you'll have a library of things that I've seen as common issues that you've got access to. But if we work one-on-one, we're really personalizing that to what you want to work on. And there's not much we can't do. If we need to do trauma work, childhood work, if we need to do things specific for your health issues, then we'll do that in collaboration, okay? And so what we're doing is we're really working with you to work out what you want to do in the hypnotherapy. And then either Kirsten or myself are guiding you through that, okay? It's very important that you have a therapeutic alliance with us first and that trust built. And hypnotherapy alone can get better results than therapy alone, because sometimes we need to tackle it at a deeper level. So in hypnosis, you're sitting here and you're talking to me now, and in your mind, you're having a thought to what I'm talking about, right? You're like, oh, yeah, I know what she's saying. Or, so there's that critical part of your brain. In hypnotherapy, what we're doing is we're trying to bypass what we call the critical factor, okay? So you'll already know that you can trust me. We already know what we're going to work on, okay? I'm going to be guiding you into a very deep relaxation so that you're not being critical of what's going on. You're not analyzing what's going on. You're trusting that you can completely relax. And then we will have worked together on what it is you want to work in. And then that's where we'll go in either the suggestions, or sometimes it can be an active hypnotherapy where we're working in therapy in session, but you're not analyzing it. You're just going with it. And whatever your brain presents is what we roll with. So even though I might say, imagine this, you might need to go somewhere else. And so that's why it's hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It's a really beautiful modality. You can do very deep work in it, but again, it's not for everyone, okay? And it's not the only tool that we've got up our sleeves. But if you are interested in it, if it works for you, then yeah, the results can be very transformational.
And Jay, is it the meditation library where people can sort of get a little taste about what that is, or is that completely separate?
No,
thing?
Absolutely, Joe. Yeah, I always encourage people that I'm going to be doing clinical hypnotherapy one-on-one with. I always encourage them to go into my library so they get used to my voice as well, and they get used to me relaxing them. So then when we do sessions together that are personalized from them, they're already recognizing that they're in a safe place with me. And so, yeah, absolutely. The meditation and hypnotherapy library is an area that they can go in and have a listen to it. And all of the titles of it have been what I've built over the 4 years that clients have directed me into what they needed. And so that's why some people love Nerve and other people are like, the library is what I need, because everything's different. I don't, repeat a lot of things.
So just a quick housekeeping and to wrap up for everyone, because I know some of the questions might be, what's meditation library? So if you go into Encircle, there's like spaces on the left-hand side, or if you're on your phone, it's at the top. And if you go into the mindset and psychology space, because there's an area called meditation library, and if you click that, you will see what we're talking about, and you've got access to all of that there that Jay has compiled. We will post a recording of this into the mindset space, like Q&A. So it will come up in Circle if you check tomorrow, for example. We'll have a recording of this and a summary. Christine, how do we schedule time? So if you speak with your dietitian or CSM like Melissa or John, they can help direct you for the next steps. Jerry, you said other websites online to strengthen the pelvic floor. There are. I don't know which are the reputable ones, but I do know if you ask that question in the Circle group, like as a post, and if you tag Taylor and a dietitian, one of the senior dietitians, she's very well versed on this, and she'll be able to point you in the right direction for sure. So last thing, just be sure you can message me directly in Circle, any feedback about Circle and about the Q&As and things like that. If you have ideas, of course, I want to hear from the clients who we're helping, because we can always improve. So feel free to do that. We have lots of events like this. Okay, so make sure you go into the upcoming events tab, and you can sort of select different topics, and you can sort of press that RSVP button, and that's why you'll get notified that way from the app, right, to get a reminder, because otherwise, of course, we're likely to forget. Thank you, Jay. Thanks everyone for coming on.
Of course.
This was fun.
It was. You just need to travel more so we can do more together.
Yeah. Or you need to do a very late Australia time session. I'm just kidding.
Or you could just fly me to Europe and then we'll be in time.
This is true. You have suggested that a couple of times, haven't you?
I know. I don't think I'm going to give up on it. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Everyone's time's precious, so thank you so much for showing up. I hope you got something out of it. And yeah, join us for the next one.